I want to talk about this old political cartoon that I see from time to time. I've seen it within the last few months, but I'll bring it up right here. You may have seen this political cartoon before. This one was shared 2 years ago by a politician, a socialist politician from Virginia named Lee J. Carter. And he shared this cartoon saying, "This comic is over 80 years old, and yet you don't have to change a thing about it. It's every bit as relevant today as the day it was drawn." And as you can see, this has over 160,000 likes on Twitter, almost 80,000 retweets. A lot of people share this sentiment. As you can see, it looks like it's war. All Americans care about is giving money to war. Meanwhile, education, healthcare, sciences, arts, they don't get any money, you guys. And I looked into it, and it turns out that this particular cartoon was drawn by a Russian artist named Yuli Ganf, who I'm probably mispronouncing. And this particular cartoon apparently was published in a magazine in the Soviet Union called Crocodile, which was a communist satire magazine. Some may say that it may have been the teen Vogue of its day. So what he's sharing here is you may be able to call communist propaganda from the Soviet Union. And apparently people like Lee J. Carter and others think it's still relevant today. And it's hard to tell if these elites in the cartoon, it's hard to tell if these are politicians, if they're government, or if they're just, maybe they're just the bourgeoisie. Maybe they're both. But it's hard to tell if it's just government spending, but I have a hard time thinking that people see it as other than government spending when you consider no one gives money to the arts. When you consider the existence of places like Disneyland and Disney World, which are theme parks where millions of people every year pay hundreds if not thousands of dollars to visit. These are theme parks that are based on the creations of a cartoon artist. So I imagine that many perceive this cartoon to mock government spending. All the U.S. government spends money on is war, apparently. Now, it's worth noting that unlike healthcare, education, and some vague notion of science and arts, that national defense is a proper function of government. And I actually wish it were the case that the federal government only spent money or primarily spent money on national defense. But not only is this cartoon false on the implication that healthcare and education receive no money from the government, but in fact, education and healthcare receive more money from the government than the military does. Let's start by looking at the military budget, and it's different depending on the source you look at. According to the Peter G. Peterson Foundation, the United States spent $686 billion on national defense in 2019. According to Wikipedia, in the fiscal year of 2020, the Department of Defense's budget was $721 billion. According to the Department of Defense's websites, the budget for the 2021 year is $740 billion for national security, $705 billion of which is going to the Department of Defense. So depending on the source and the year, U.S. defense, military, national security spending gets probably between $650 billion and $750 billion annually. And going back to this cartoon, that's all the money. They're getting all of the money. Meanwhile, education, look in the upper left-hand corner of this cartoon. Look at that poor student. Education, there's nothing on his plate. He barely gets a penny, folks. All he got was this globe, which they probably just gave to him so that they could brainwash him into invading all of the other countries on the globe. This cartoon is so relevant, you guys, because education apparently gets no money in the United States. Now, according to some sources, like The Guardian, the United States actually spends more on education than other countries. According to educationdata.org, K through 12 schools spend $612 billion, which is $12,600 per pupil per year annually. And federal, state, and local governments spend $721 billion or $14,800 per pupil to fund K through 12 public education. And the census also confirms this, saying that in 2018, public elementary and secondary schools received $721 billion. Oh man, this cartoon is so relevant, you guys, when all the money that goes to military and war gets roughly the same amount of money as education in the United States. By the way, education spending, federal education spending has gone nowhere but up ever since the Jimmy Carter administration. And then there's the issue of healthcare. As you can see, the poor doctor at the healthcare table has nothing on his plate. Hospitals, doctors, healthcare, they don't get any money in the United States because it's all going to war. This cartoon is so relevant, you guys. Now, according to Tax Policy Center, the federal government, the United States federal government, spent $1.2 trillion in 2019 on healthcare. And according to this article on Investopedia, as you can see, Medicare spending grew to almost $800 billion in 2019. Medicare alone is more than the national defense budget. But then when you add Medicaid, that grew to over $600 billion in 2019. This also does not mention all of the money that comes from the private sector. Apparently in 2019, total healthcare spending in America was $3.8 trillion. But apparently, healthcare gets zero money in the United States because this cartoon is so relevant, you guys. Then there's the issue of arts and sciences. And as far as science goes, not only should government not be investing in these areas, but I think the private sector does a pretty good job already. Look nowhere else than Silicon Valley and the booming biotech industry, and the fact that billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are competing over space exploration. And we're already spending tens of billions of dollars on NASA, I think, going off the top of my head here. And yeah, I know NASA just landed that cool robot on Mars, and it's cool, and I'm happy they succeeded, but why do we still need to spend tax dollars on a space program when billionaires seem rather eager and happy to explore space anyway? And maybe there would be more private investment in science and technology and innovation if the regulatory state was not such a hassle, and if today's political class was not so hostile to innovation. I mean, shit, we got to get government's permission to research stem cell treatments. If the FDA is going to make it so costly to bring new medicines and new treatments to market, then why bother trying to make new drugs, new treatments, new medical technology, especially when idiots like Katie Porter are eager to shake everyone down with her stupid whiteboard. How dare you pharmaceutical companies trying to make a profit? I thought this was America. Meanwhile, politicians on both sides are on a crusade against big tech. Woo! Whether it's California Democrats going after the gig economy or Republicans trying to destroy social media companies, and they all hate Amazon, and the new jibber-jabbering Joe Biden administration is making it more difficult to frack for oil. We also got to get government's permission to build new nuclear power plants. It's 2021, and the two richest states in America, Texas and California, are struggling to keep the fucking lights on. Meanwhile, we have two major billionaires like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos wanting to invest in nuclear energy. In other words, invest in science. Can we please let these generous billionaires build some nuclear reactors before more people get hurt? Then there's the issue of art. Again, look at that poor starving artist at the top of the cartoon, barely gets any money. Which, as I mentioned earlier, Americans already spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year to visit theme parks like Disneyland and Disney World that are based on creations of a cartoonist named Walt Disney. And as we all know, the Walt Disney Company has spent billions of dollars over the last few decades, acquiring new cartoon properties like Marvel and other properties like Star Wars, and they're making new movies that are raking in billions of dollars at the box office. Musicians have been making millions of dollars for decades. There is no better time and place to be an artist than 21st century America. The main reason being that freedom of speech and freedom of expression are still largely respected in the United States. You look at the fact that the government used to be somewhat involved with regulating speech on broadcast television for decades. Then cable television came along and they were allowed to get away with riskier content. And then the internet came along and the government doesn't regulate content at all. And now we are in a golden age of television as a result. I can't even keep up with all the shit that's on TV these days. Now people have a problem of choosing which streaming services they want to subscribe to watch TV and movies on. You got your Netflix, you got your Hulu, your Disney Plus, your Paramount Plus, your Peacock Network, your WWE Network, your HBO Max, Showtime, Stars, Amazon Prime, YouTube Premium, Sling, which is odd because 4 years ago everyone was freaking out, said that repealing net neutrality would destroy streaming services, and now there's too much stuff to watch. Meanwhile, people are itching and eager to get back to movie theaters and concerts and comedy clubs after these lockdowns end. But to top it all off, thanks to technology, thanks to the internet, thanks to big tech, woo! Thanks to all of this wonderful technology, it is easier than ever to make quality art and to market your art. A couple weeks ago, I talked about how artists are able to reach customers on websites like Fiverr. All this new software we have makes it easier to make movies, music, pictures, cartoons, and what have you. Large businesses like Google and Amazon are offering people a low-cost means of hosting and streaming content. Other businesses like Patreon and PayPal make it easier for fans to support the creators that they enjoy. So the arts certainly do not have a funding problem in America. But if there's any art that is worthy of defunding, it is garbage communist cartoons like this.